making a classic Louisiana dish, crawfish etouffee. Here in Louisiana, we're all pretty opinionated, especially when it comes to our food. We take it very seriously. Etouffee, just like gumbo, there are hundreds of different ways to make it according to which region you live in Louisiana. And we all think that our way to make it is the right way. This is just the way that I make it. This is the way that my family makes it. This is the way my great-grandmother and grandmother made it. So this is how I make it. The first thing I'm going to do is take my crawfish tails. Now I'm using 2 pounds of crawfish today because I'm doing a double recipe. The recipe that I posted is a single recipe. So it's the same as everything I'm doing. It's just half the amount. The first thing I'm going to do is take my crawfish tails and put them in a strainer over a bowl and let all of this crawfish fat and juice leak out of it, because that's what I use for the gravy. See, I'm just going to put my crawfish tails into this strainer over a bowl, but I'm going to keep all of that fat and all that crawfish juice because that's going to go into our etouffee. One thing about crawfish here, most people in Louisiana, we're funny about where they come from. Whoops, I dropped that. I check and make sure that they're a product of the U.S. and usually that they come from Louisiana. I just find that the crawfish tails from Spain and China have a different taste. They're not as sweet. They just taste different to me. And maybe it's just a mental thing, but I don't think so. So I have used the ones from Spain and China because I bought them on accident. But now I make sure I check on the back where they are from. So I'm just going to set these over here while we cut up all our onions and let these drain. Alright, next, just like my gumbo and anything else, I like to get all of my onions and everything cut up. So I'm going to cut up 1 large onion. It doesn't have to be tiny chopped. I'm just going to do just a regular rough chop on it. Alright, I got my onions cut up. I'm just going to put those in my bowl. And I'm going to cut my green onions. I like to use kitchen scissors when I do my green onions just because it's so much easier to me. And they're cleaned and ready to go. I cut the bulbs off, but I do use the white ends down here. So we're just going to cut these up. And I'm also going to peel about 4 big cloves of garlic. Alright, I've got my garlic peeled and my onions cut up in the bowl. And some people, they use the Trinity. They use celery, bell pepper, and onion with their etouffee and their gumbo. Where my family's from, they don't do it that way, so I don't do it that way. All I use is green onion, and garlic. But if you want to put the celery and the bell pepper in, by all means, put it in. That's just not how my family does it. All right, so now we're going to make our roux. I didn't hit the record button a second ago, so I'm going to explain all this to y'all again. If you're not used to making roux, I'm going to do my best to explain it to you and explain the stages of a roux used for different dishes. A roux, the way I make it is, it's 1-to-1 ratio, equal parts flour, equal parts oil. I'm just using regular vegetable oil for mine today. So in here, I've got a 1/2 cup of oil and a 1/2 cup of flour, and I just whisked it together. I usually start my roux with a whisk, and then just to get it mixed up, and then I switch to a flat spoon or a roux spoon, but you do not have to have a flat spoon. I'm making a double recipe, so I used a 1/2 cup of oil, 1/2 cup of flour. The single recipe that I posted has a 1/4 cup because it's just a single recipe. Now, if you're not used to making a roux, if you've never made one, you would probably need to start low and slow and babysit it and watch it. I know how high I can cook mine and for how long I can leave it alone because I've just made it my whole life. So I start my roux off on a higher temperature just to get my pot heated up and just to get the oil and everything heated up. As soon as it starts looking like it's starting to change colors, I turn it down to low because once your roux starts changing colors, it's going to go a lot faster and it will burn on you very quickly. So I've got my pot on medium, a little bit medium-high heat right now just to heat this up. And as soon as it starts changing color, I'm going to turn it down to medium-low and I'm really going to babysit it then. So we're just going to wait for this to start changing colors. Alright, it's starting to change colors. It hasn't gotten real dark or anything, but it is starting to change colors. So I'm going to turn the heat down. And it's also starting to smell like roux. And if you don't know what roux smells like, if you ever make it, you'll know immediately what I'm talking about. I usually, if I know I'm going to be making roux and I need to wash my hair, I wait to wash my hair until the roux is made, because your hair will smell like it until you wash it. For my gumbo, I cook my roux until it's a melted milk chocolate color, and then I put my onions in. For etouffee, I cook it till peanut. It's the color of peanut butter. And then I'll put my onions in. So this is the color I would use for a chicken gravy, and then just a little bit darker for a pork gravy, pork stew. Alright, so this is almost the color of peanut butter. Just gonna go just a minute or two more, and then we're gonna put our vegetables in, our onions. And this is the same way that I start my gumbo. I put my onions and all that into the roux. To me, it gives it a sweetness. It breaks down all the sugars in the onions. And especially for the gumbo, it allows you to keep cooking that roux to get a beautiful, rich, dark color without getting that real dark roux taste. Some people don't put their onions in their roux and cook them like that. They put them in the liquid, and that's fine too. You know, however you want to do it. This is just the way that I do it. Like I said, everybody thinks that their way is the right way to make gumbo and etouffee, but depending on the region in Louisiana, there's differences in how we make things. And I think everybody's way is the right way as long as they like it, you know. It may not be right to you, but it's somebody's right way. We've got it to the color of peanut butter. So now I'm going to put my onions in. And like I said, if you want to use celery and bell pepper, you use it, you know. That's just not the way that my family did it. It's not what I'm used to, so this is how I make it. This really is an easy recipe, and it's pretty quick too. The longest thing is going to be, you know, making your roux. We're going to stir these around a little bit, make sure that they're all coated really good, and we're going to let them cook. And now it's not going to burn. You can turn it up a little bit to heat up some if you want. And, you know, walk away, do some dishes or something. Because it's not going to burn. You'd have to turn it up pretty high and leave it for a long time for it to burn. And this is the best smell in the whole world. If you're from Louisiana, you think it's the best smell in the whole world. The onions cooking in the roux. And then in a minute we're going to put our garlic in. And it's just, there's nothing that smells like that. We're just going to let these cook until our onions are tender. And I'm not going to just leave it the whole time. I am going to come back, you know, a few minutes, you know. I am going to come back from time to time, and I'm going to stir them and check them. But you don't have to stay just right on top of it now. Alright, so it's been 12 minutes that I've let these onions cook, and they look pretty good. And now I'm going to put some tomato paste in here. Now, some people don't put anything in their etouffee. Some people put whole tomatoes. Some people put chopped tomatoes. This is just how I do it. Now, I have never ever measured this. I usually put just like 2 regular tablespoons in there. So let me try to measure this for y'all. I really don't even know how to do it without just throwing it in there. So that's 1. That's 3. That was 3 tablespoons. And it doesn't have to be exact, because that's the first time I've ever measured that. Ever in my whole life. So we're just going to let this tomato paste cook in here for a few minutes. And it's kind of hard to explain when it's done. Again, I'm going to time it for you. But I know that it's cooked long enough by the way it smells. The tomato paste will change in color. It gets more of an orangey color instead of a red. And it has a certain smell to it, which there's no way for me to share that with you. But it gets a certain smell to it. And also on the bottom of your pot, you'll start to see it starting to stick a little bit. And that's the best way I know how to tell you that it's cooked long enough. I honestly go by the smell and the color of it to know how long it's cooked. But I am going to time it for y'all to let y'all know how long it takes. All right, it's been cooking for about 5 minutes, and you do need to come stir it. Make sure that all that's getting cooked evenly. Mine is starting to stick to the bottom just a little bit, and it is starting to change that more orangey color. But I just stir it, and then I pat it back down in an even layer, and I'll let it cook for another 5 minutes or so, and then I'll do the same thing again. And I just keep doing that until it gets that smell, and I know that that tomato paste is cooked long enough. Alright, I got that orangey color that I was talking about, and it smells like it's done, so this is done. And see, it's starting to stick a little bit right there. So now we're going to put our garlic in. Alright, I'm going to put my garlic in, and you can use chopped garlic, the jarred garlic, no garlic. I don't chop my garlic for this. I use just a microplane, and I just grate it in there like that, just because sometimes I'm kind of lazy. So I'm just going to grate in 4 large cloves of garlic in here. Mix that in real good, and we're just going to let it cook a couple minutes. Oh, and I cooked the tomato paste for 10 minutes, and so it took 10 minutes for it to smell like it was done to me. And that's a thing in Louisiana. There's so much that we go off of just look and smell or taste. We don't have written recipes, and it's actually very hard to cook with to try to measure this stuff. But I'm glad I'm finally actually getting recipes. So we're just going to let that garlic cook just for, you know, a couple minutes. We let our garlic cook for about 2 minutes, and now I've got all this crawfish fat and crawfish juice that we saved. I'm going to pour that in here. And this is the way that I make shrimp etouffee too. It's just instead I use shrimp, and I usually make shrimp stock. I take the heads and the shells and boil them and make a shrimp stock in place of the crawfish fat and juices from those packages. You can, if you can find seafood stock, you know, like in the box, I've used that too when I didn't feel like making shrimp stock. I'm also going to add some water to loosen it up. This is 1.5 cups, I think. Let me see. Let me stir that first. Now, when you're cooking stuff with a roux, you don't know how thick it's going to be until it comes to a boil. So I'm going to turn this up and bring it to a boil and see if that's enough water. And I'm going to go ahead and season while I'm waiting on that to come to a boil. We need some salt, pepper, and again, you season it however you want to season it. Whatever you like to use in it, using it. I'm using salt, pepper, little Tony's, a little onion powder, and a little garlic powder. And in a little bit, I've got a secret ingredient I put in this that I learned from my grandfather, and he made the best etouffee in the whole world. It was his secret ingredient, and my family will probably be mad as heck at me for putting it out there, but I'm going to. And that looks a little bit too thick to me, so I'm going to put the rest of it in there. I put a 1.5 cups. Alright, this came to a boil, and it's the thickness that I like. It does look very thick right now, but later when we put our crawfish tails in, they're going to release their liquid, and it's going to loosen it up. So now I'm going to turn this down to medium-low, and I'm just going to cover it and let it cook. And again, I don't know how long, but I will time it for y'all. It's 2:15 right now, so when I find out how long, I'll let you know. And you are going to want to stir this every once in a while. Just make sure it's not sticking. Alright, it's been cooking 13 minutes. And now I'm going to put my secret ingredient in. And I don't know how much I put in this. And I'm not going to measure it either, because it's a secret ingredient. And the secret ingredient is mustard. And that might sound weird, but it's like it draws all the flavors together. And what I do is I just go I go like that. So just 1, around the pot with the mustard. Not a whole lot. So I cooked that 13 minutes, and now I'm going to stir that all in. And I'm going to put a few shots of Tabasco. I put 4 shots of Tabasco in it. Alright, I'm just going to cover that, and I'm going to let it cook another 15 minutes. Alright, it's been another 15 minutes, and this is done. We're going to put our crawfish in now. So I cooked that sauce a total of 30 minutes. I'll put our crawfish right in there. Look how pretty that is. I think that's beautiful. I think it's just beautiful. That's a pretty gravy. I'm going to let that just start to simmer, and I'm going to turn the heat off and cover it and let it sit for 10 minutes. You don't want to cook your crawfish too much because they'll get rubbery or just ruin them. So I've got an electric stove. So as soon as this starts to simmer again, I'm going to turn it off because mine's not going to stop heating for a little bit. If it was gas, you could let it simmer a few minutes. But as soon as this starts to simmer, I'm going to shut my heat off and put the top on for 10 minutes, and my crawfish will be done. Alright, this came back to a simmer, so I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to shut my heat off and let it sit for 10 minutes. And like I said, I've got an electric stove, so that heat's not going to shut off immediately. It's going to take it a few minutes. So it's going to continue to simmer in here for a few more minutes. If you had a gas stove, you immediately lose your fire, so it's going to stop. So if you got a gas stove, you can leave it on and let it simmer a couple of minutes, but not very long. So anyways, we're going to leave this covered, and in 10 minutes it'll be done, and in 10 minutes our rice will be done, and it'll be time to eat. Thanks so much for joining me for me and my family's version of crawfish etouffee. I hope you try it and that you like it. If you do try it, please let me know how it comes out, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Here shortly, I'm going to be doing a video on shrimp Creole. I can't get fresh Gulf shrimp in my area right now, but as soon as I do, I'll be making a video about that. And also, in a few weeks here, we're going to be doing crawfish week. We're going to do boiled crawfish. We're going to do crawfish omelets. We're going to be doing crawfish everything. So I'll see y'all next time.